that we'll be able to deal with the meeting well before the scheduled end time. With that, my name is Muzim Kize. I'll be chairing this meeting. With me are the members of the energy regulator, who are also members of this Petroleum Pipelines Subcommittee. With me, I'll start off by Madam Pungose, who is the Deputy Chairperson of NERSA, as well as the Chair of the Human Resources and Remuneration Committee, and a member of the various committees and subcommittees of the energy regulator, including this Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee. Madam Pungose, if you may just greet.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members, and greetings to members of the public.
Thank you very much, Madam Pungose. Also in this meeting is Advocate Nomalanga Stole, who is the CEO of NERSA, as well as the Chairperson of the Regulator Executive Committee, and a member of various committees and subcommittees of the Energy Regulator, being also a member of this subcommittee. Advocate Stole, over to you.
Well, good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members and NERSA personnel and everyone who has joined us for this meeting this morning. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Advocate Stole. With me is also Madam Nomfundo Maseti, who's a full-time regulator member, primarily responsible for pipe gas regulation. She's also currently assisting as a full-time regulator member, primarily responsible for electricity regulation, and chairing the respective subcommittees for pipe gas regulation and electricity regulation, and a member of various subcommittees and committees of the energy regulator. Over to you, Madam Maseti. Madam Maseti, I think you're on a muted mic.
Sorry, Chairperson. Okay, good morning to you, Chairperson. Good morning to the members, as well as the members of the public that are following today's proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Maseti. I also have Mr. Fungais Banda, who is a part-time regulator member and chairperson, the chairperson of the ITGC, which stands for Information Technology Governance Committee, a member of various committees and subcommittees of the energy regulator, including this subcommittee. Mr. Fungais Banda, over to you, sir.
Morning, Chair, colleagues, and members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Today we've got Mr. Walter Mabunda, who's assisting as the secretary of this subcommittee. We'll then proceed with our meeting. In terms of the agenda, members, we've got the agenda as presented. Just if there are any changes suggested, by show of hands. If not, please, members, just raise your hand if you do support the adoption of the agenda as presented. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Mrs. Banda. Thank you, Madam Pungose. I also support. Thank you, Advocate Tole. The agenda is adopted as presented. Members, we're moving to the item for the declaration of interest. Any interest to declare verbally in this meeting? Members and management? I see no hands raised. I would also like to take this opportunity to implore you to please fill in the declaration of interest forms which are attached under the agenda item, and please share them with the secretary in today's meeting, being Mr. Walter Mabunda. We'll then proceed to item 5, which is the report on the inlet security of supply. You've got your 3 minutes, Dr. Xolo. Please, if you can just cut to the chase and highlight the critical matters, noting the document as having been read by the members. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members, management, and colleagues. And how can I forget the members of the public? Thank you so much for joining to keep us alert and to account. Before we account, I would like to make just a quick remark that it's not the intention of this submission to critique any approaches, but to present the process that we followed and the reason behind it. Anyone who adopts any approach is at liberty to do so. Where we've mentioned certain approaches, we're just mentioning them in passing. It's also essential in presenting the submission that we do not understate our achievement. This is important for several reasons. I will just mention three: to reassure members of the public that we are fully engaged and actively delivering on our responsibility. Also to strengthen PPF members' confidence in the work that we are doing, and to ensure accurate documentation of fact. I'll take the submission as read, including Annexure A, which is a report that detailed the analysis. But the key points that members should note is that we are talking about the multi-product pipeline volumes, not the total system volumes, of which now for instance, we are talking of an increase in MMPP volumes. That does not automatically translate to also an increase in the total systems volumes. Those are two different reference points. There are various factors that you consider. So, but technically, a decline in the MPP volumes it results in the higher tariffs for pipeline users. So, what we have done since the country now is relying on the import. We have taken data for the past 4 years in terms of as far as the imports are concerned, and compare them to the MPP volumes. But it's important that I mention that if I'm talking of the imports, only the product that can be injected into the MPP. So the reference point again is different as far as this case is concerned. So what we've done, we've got figures there. For instance, figure A1 and figure A2 on pages 9 and 11, where we show the trend. And we've noticed that in terms of comparing the import versus the MPP, they differ. More so in the previous financial year, 2024-2025. But we all know that there was a rerouting of jet fuel because of the refinery fire that happened in January 2025, which sort of distorted everything else. But what we have also tried to gain from our licensees, in particular regarding the import, is get an understanding why we are seeing that trend pertaining to import. Among the reasons that they were shared with us is cessation of the load shedding, which sort of led to the reduction in demand, international supply constraint, as well as stating that the import sort of depends in terms of the performance of the inland refineries. But what is also important is that it depends who you talk to in terms of the information that would sort of be conveyed to you. As a result, when you try to link the reason that has been provided to the trend, sometimes it does not correlate. But what does that tell you is that there are other unspoken factors that may have been at play. But it's also important that in the past we have been solely relying in terms of the projection from TPL as well, Bureau for Economic Research, but things have since changed in a sense that there is an internal kind of a models that have been developed pertaining to machine learning, but it is up here, paragraph 6.11 to 6.14 pertaining to that in terms of how we go about modeling. But the important point that I would like to make that a percentage difference is if you're talking of pipeline volumes, as well as if you sort of translate it into monetary value, is huge. Meaning that even if you've got two different models, but if one can sort of assist you in terms of getting a better percentage payment, that is appreciated. Maybe if one, to sort of make an example in terms of the South African Reserve Bank, when it talking about adjusting the repo rate, we have had analysts talking about 25 basis point, 50 basis point, and 75 basis point, and so on. But in terms of percentage, those are small because we're talking of 0.25, 0.5%, 0.75%. At face value, those are small. But it's a different case if we're talking of consumers, in the eyes of consumers and people that have debt. So that small figure at face value in monetary values is huge. Similarly, the same concept applies in terms of talking of different models. But what we have also done, we've tried to explain and sort of illustrate why we not adopting the linearity in terms of modeling. But details are provided in the report. If members can refer to figures A5 and A4 and A5 on page 13 to give more details pertaining to that. But having said that, what we will do on our side, we'll continue to monitor and improve the models over time. But it's important at this stage to state that what is important is the existence of a functional tool. We do not claim them to be the best, but rather a foundation in terms of developing, in terms of improvement. We also know that Transnet is trying its best in terms of chasing the pipeline volumes, in terms of improving the pipeline's volumes. So that work is noted. But currently, there are no threats in terms of the Indian security of supply. Having said that, I would like to recommend to members to note the report and the improvement made to strengthen our processes. Thank you. I will take the questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Polo. Please just pardon me for the background noise. We appreciate the report, and we think that it will also be opportune to engage Transnet on the same, so that there's just kind of harmony and understanding with regard to the tools that are being used, especially when it comes to predicting or forecasting the volumes, seeing the correlations that will help in terms of also increasing the volumes going through the pipeline network. I'm saying this also because the project was initially started as first looking at the sufficiency of the infrastructure to transport fuel from the coast to the inland. But now it's moved towards being more concerned about optimal utilization of the infrastructure, which was deemed adequate to cater for the inland market. Members, if there are any questions, comments, guidance you would like to provide, please raise your hands so that you can be able to provide same. I don't see any hands. Oh, here I've got Mr. Sibanda. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Dr. Polo. Chair, mine is just around perhaps the reasons for the decline in volumes, or perhaps just the trend, because I think it's easy to maybe analyze a trend because all that you need is data. But to then explain the reasoning behind the trend, I think that's where perhaps there could be challenges, and I see in the report that it's the reasons are described as being speculative. And I think Dr. Kwelo spoke to that it depends on who you speak to. So I'm just wondering whether there's a way for us to improve that analysis, because like I'm saying, for me, a trend is a trend. Whether it's going up or it's going down or it's constant, but what's critical is what's driving the trend. So I think we need to get to a point where we are able to then have reliable information that tells us or that informs us what the drivers are for that particular trend. So maybe if the team can work on that, I'm pretty sure there should be a way of overcoming that particular challenge, because then I think that will add to the quality of the information that we are trying to communicate. Thank you, Chair. Well, maybe the other one really is just around the modeling itself. I don't know whether we need both models, because well, as far as I can see the results, they aren't really that far apart. And I do take the point, as Dr. Kwelo said, that a percentage difference makes a lot of impact. But I'm just wondering whether we need both models, especially if the one we're saying is unpredictable and all of that. But maybe you can also talk to that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. Over to you, Advocate Sithole.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, one of the issues that I've noted that have been indicated as an item excluded in the report, it's the issue of product theft. And I just thought that this particular issue does have an impact on the decline in volumes. And I thought that probably it could have been highlighted as to how it is happening and what are the measures that are being put in place to ensure that it is minimized. Because if we do not also highlight it, not in a big way, but just briefly to just highlight its impact on the decline in volumes, because it is a contributing factor to the security of supply, particularly in the inland area. So I just thought that maybe Dr. Kwelo can explain as to why we try to exclude that as it is one of the reasons that impacts on the volume and as well as security of supply. Thanks, Chairperson. If you can explain that, I'll appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate Sithole. Over to you, Dr. Kwelo, if you may just respond. Yes. And then maybe the EM can also weigh in. Madam Twa, sorry, I did not introduce you at the beginning as the one who's leading the team. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with Mr. Sibanda's in terms of explaining the reason behind the trend. While the report was sort of circulating, we're still engaging with the licensees. Hence, in my brief introduction, I sort of highlighted in terms of what has been conveyed to us by the licensees, where I mentioned cessation of load shedding, where they're saying there is no longer a demand. Some they lost customers. I also mentioned the international supply constraint pertaining to the challenges, because although in the past we've been just talking about our local supply challenges, For instance, it could be congestion as a bad, but we forget that even where they source the products from, there are also challenges there. Hence, we're talking of the integral supply constraint. And we also talk in terms of dependence, in terms of the performance of the refineries. But I also stated that when you try now to correlate the reason provided by each licensee, okay, you look in terms of what they said and then in terms of what is happening. But you also realize that it does not fully agree in terms of what has been communicated. Hence, I said it depends who you talk to pertaining to that. It shows that there are other factors that are at play pertaining to the trend. But those are the things that we can share, which has been communicated by the licensees to NERSA. In terms of the why we need both models, we can hide one from members, but from my side, I would still be in terms of training, because training continues, it does not stop. As you get new data, you train and see how they perform. But in terms of presenting, I'm happy to present one that is sort of showing better result as far as getting closer. Because in terms of the performance, is not necessarily in terms of the increase, but it could also be a decrease. So you look both sides, like we do in terms of the repo rate, the increase in repo rate and the decrease in repo rate. Unlike when you're talking of the salary increase, although the percentage in terms of looking in terms of that, because it's always an increase. Coming to advocacy Sitholes, in terms of product depth, our colleagues in licensing, they sort of deal with the aspect. As well as in terms of because there are meetings that take place which sort of consider certain information confidential. Is in that respect that one cannot fully engage in terms of that without the insight, because not part of that, but our colleagues, they sort of be able in terms of be in a better position to report pertaining to those aspects. But one cannot deny that aspect. But the good thing, when you look in terms of the trend, as far as the MPP is concerned, it has been fluctuating, in other words, up and down. It's unlike the trend that you see pertaining to the import. Those are totally different trends pertaining to that. Hence, we sort of adopted that approach in terms of bringing that aspect in terms of the import, of which we are not doing in the past. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I think what is important to highlight is that please engage with the involved licensees, especially to know the other factors that are not coming very clearly, but could affect or need to be included or catered for in the model, whatever model that you use. And the other thing that to consider is the fact that you would have a situation where you've got a model, and then you also keep other models, especially when one wants to test, the robustness and as well as the integrity of that model, especially when one also looks at accuracy. So there would be a need to look at these models, maybe whilst running them in parallel, just to be able to check one against the other and ensure that all the factors that could affect these volumes are taken care of. And then on the issue of the incidents regarding product theft, they will be dealt with under item 8, as Mr. Untit has indicated. It's because of their very sensitive nature that we don't discuss them in detail in this space, as it is dealt with, particularly in the security cluster. but here they've been provided. But as far as how they affect the volumes, that will be, I think, going forward, Dr. Claude, we just need to highlight that, even if it's just one paragraph, or just to indicate how that could affect the volumes. I think that would then serve to cater for that, because you should not dismiss that as an improvement of what could be, might need also to be considered. As you've said, there are many factors that goes into the forecasting of volumes and improvement thereof. I want to go to the recommendation, but before, I see that there's a hand by the Deputy Chairperson of NERSA. Madam
Thank
Thomas.
you, Chairperson. I actually meant to raise this, but for some reason I didn't. I suggest that under clause 6.5, amongst the items we add there is the security, things that influence, the usage of the pipeline. So I was going to suggest that we also add security of the product whilst in transit, product safety or security whilst in transit could also be a determining factor on which mode of transport companies choose to use or licenses choose to use. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Madam Thomas. But we'll have to, you just have to put that in and explain why it would improve, it will influence, or why not. I'm looking at it from the sense that you would have the product there, and then what the shipper puts in is not exactly what he gets out. Because the product is in the pipeline and is being pumped out. So there is no risk for the shipper per se in terms of that loss of product. But that I think is important to put that factor so that it is also explained clearly whether it is it affects positively or negatively, or it's in the shippers are indifferent thereto. I don't know if you're covered with that, Madam Pumose. So you can just move to the noting.
I am covered, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We'll then proceed to the recommendation. Under 15, it is recommended that the PPS notes the initial submission for the 2025-26 financial year regarding inland security of supply. The report primarily examines the utilization of the multi-product pipeline, referencing, amongst others, one, the impact of imported products via various Durban-based facilities on the MPP, the multi-product pipeline. Two, the effect of the Natref refinery shutdown from 4th January 2025 to 15 February 2025 on MPP throughput. Three, the application of two machine learning predictive models developed to improve the volume forecast for the MPP. These are the first models of their kind applied to the MPP. Information presented to NERSA on 7th July 2025 by Transnet Pipeline and its two consulting firms suggested that such approaches were not yet in use. And lastly, fourthly, is the absence of any project threats to inland security of supply based solely on expected volumes. If you are happy to note that by show of hands, members. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Sbanda, Advocate Tole. I'm happy to support. Thanks, Madam Pumose. This then concludes item 5. We've got item 6, 7, 8, 9 in this open meeting. Madam Twa, if you may just help, just to indicate who's going to be helping us with infrastructure utilization and third-party access to petroleum storage facilities, and then as well as 7, 8, and 9.
Thank you, Chair. On the next item, it's still Dr. Olo with Ms. Mabiche. And then the next item is Ms. Ngobeni, and then Mr. Dalumapodu and Mapori and Azania Yukwan for the last item 9. Thank you.
Thank you. If you may just please then proceed as such, and we just try to stay within your 3 minutes allocated. Mr. Mapoli, President 8, and number 6 is Dr. Kolo again. Dr. Kolo, over to you. You've got your 3 minutes. Please try to stay within that.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take this submission and report as read. But what was important to know that since April 2024, we've managed to revise the volume reporting template as we speak. The licensees are using it for reporting, although the initial plan was to sort of implement it in the next financial year. But there were certain challenges that were reported by licensees, and then we tried to revise and assist them. Hence, we implemented in this financial year. And we did not just implement, but there were stakeholder engagement, about 40 workshops, at least 40. There are more than 40 now. But at the time when we were preparing the submission, there were 40 that we have engaged even one-on-ones with the licenses. But what has that assisted us is in terms of, because this revised volume reporting template is to have 2 data analysis tools that have also reduced our processing time by 90% in terms of completing everything that needs to be done in terms of the report, as well as in terms of publishing the list of facilities with our capacity. But having talked of a machine learning tool in the previous submission, I'd like everyone to know that pertaining to storage is a totally different tool, because in this case, we're not talking about a pipeline, but we're talking of facilities, storage facilities that are more than 100. And then in terms of, for the model to be able to perform well in terms of predictions, that's where big data comes in, because you need more data than compared when you're talking of just one pipeline. So, but at this stage, what we're doing, we still training the model with data that we receive. But we all know that society has sort of taught us that anything that is below 50% is unacceptable, while anything above 50% is acceptable. I believe that it really depends on the standard one set for oneself. But one hopes that we are able to raise the model's performance to at least 7% to be able to start using it. But the key points that members should know that quite a significant number of facilities are able, in a position to accommodate third parties. But the issue is that everyone wants to import via the Port of Durban, which now becomes a bottleneck. As a result, even the facilities that are not importing but have a potential to be used, they will not be used by third parties because they all want to import. But it's also important that as far as level of third-party access, when the report was circulating, we're sitting at about 26%, because about 113 reports had been analyzed so far, 117 have been analyzed with new data, and that has slightly dropped to about 25.8% in terms of level of third-party access. But we know, based in terms of that data, the major contribution comes from Durban, which is 14.5% out of 25.8% in terms of third-party access. So Having said that, I would like the members to note the report and the work that is being undertaken to improve the processes. I will take the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Polo. Whilst presenting, I still would want us not to be too heavy on the technicalities of the model as opposed to the talking in layman's term in terms of the availability and utilization of facilities by third parties and moving ahead to try to improve that aspect, which is a key challenge. You have mentioned that the Port of Durban becomes a bottleneck as people want to import via that channel with challenges regarding accessibility. I think the other issues members would also pertain to the sizes of these parcels and vis-a-vis the capacity that is available to accommodate them. So there are all these other factors requiring all this kind of modeling that Dr. Polo is talking about. But be as it may, any questions, comments, guidance members would like to provide to Dr. Polo and the team? I don't see any hands. Oh, here is Ms. Sibanda. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Just to commend the team on the work that's been done to bring licensees up to speed with the new template and to raise awareness around that. I think it's commendable. 40 workshops in 4 months. I do recognize, recognize that some of these were one-on-one sessions, but nonetheless, I think it's commendable. So what I want to perhaps suggest, because I think it would be important to give an indication of whether there's an improvement. I know you speak about efficiencies internally, processing efficiencies internally. That has improved in terms of the time it takes to process the information, but I'm more focused on whether there's improvement in terms of compliance, and I do take note that that is contained in a separate report. But I think, Chair, it's important to have linkages. We cannot have reports that are not speaking to each other. So if there's information in another report that impacts on this one, I think it's important to draw that information so that we see the linkages. I would really be interested to know what or rather how this has impacted on compliance. If we're saying that it has assisted us internally, what about externally? And I would not want to go to another report to read about that when I'm reading the efficiencies in this particular report. So just a suggestion there to say, can we have linkages between and amongst reports? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. Dr. Polo, if you may just quickly respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I would like to thank Mr. Mibanda for his kind words. Pertaining to his question, there is something else that comes into play, the non-bulk facilities. But with the observation with the bulk facilities, I've seen an improvement pertaining to that. Even those facilities with more than one storage, even those licenses with more than one storage facilities, you will find that they will be reporting on few. But what I've observed is quite amazing. There's quite a significant improvement pertaining to that. When you exclude the non-bulk, which are sort of treated differently pertaining to this issue. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think it's just going to be important when one looks at the scope of these reports under scope to then include also how they link with other reports, so that people should not second guess that something is catered elsewhere in another report. I think generally for reporting, with some of them, they seem to be very related, and therefore I think the last issue mentioned by Mrs. Banda need to be catered for also in that manner of when talking to what is in scope and what is out of scope, so that we are able to reference the other reports. Thank you. I see Madam Massetti's hand, and then I'll go back to EM.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, as this report obviously touches on a number of things, yes, the volumes and issues of third-party access and the utilization of the capacity and all of that, or capacity that is contracted, which cannot be made available. My question is just to make sure that capacity that is not utilized is not simply contracted when it can be made available to the market, which is something that we need to be vigilant about. So I wanted to find out if the team does focus on a capacity that is contracted, yes, or committed. However, to get data showing that such capacity has been utilized, or how much part of that capacity is utilized and some is not utilized for a certain period of time, so that then the licensees must be able to indicate that to us, that capacity that is not utilized, it may be contractually committed, however, it's not utilized. Such capacity, it should be released to the market, and that's what the regulators are for, so that they are able to force the parties to provide information demonstrating that all of the contracted capacity has been utilized. If not utilized, that capacity must then be released. If it's not released, what is the evidence and facts that will then prevent the energy regulator from deciding that such capacity be released, so that others are not prevented or excluded when they need a capacity for third-party access purposes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Massetti. Madam Chua?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, members, for the comments and question. I think initially I wanted to actually touch on what you have indicated in terms of linkages, and noting that we will then in future just include a paragraph, and also maybe just the way we set our agenda, because some of the things that Mrs. Banda was asking about are in item 8. So maybe in future just start with compliance, so that when we then talk and reference back to the item, it's already been discussed. From what Ms. Massetti has raised, indeed, we do that kind of analysis, because since the licensees, they initially send all the volumes for the 12 months that they intend to put through the storage facilities, and then based on the monthly volumes, then we are able to analyze and see whether there is volumes that is not utilized. And also because the members who require access to these facilities, they do copy us in terms of the request, and we see all the discussion. Then we are able to intervene where we see some discrepancies in terms of available capacity versus the volume throughput. So indeed, we are analyzing that kind of information, and we have sight of the contracts and whether the capacity is fully utilized or not based on the submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chua. I would just like to, with that, if I can then go to the recommendation, noting that Advocate Tole just need to excuse herself and come back just to assist at least with this one, Advocate Tole. If you just assist in terms of voting here. The recommendation is that the PPS notes the initial submission for the 2025-26 financial year, reporting on the analysis of infrastructure utilization to determine uncommitted capacity and third-party access at petroleum storage facilities. Key highlights of the report include: 1, the implementation of the revised volume reporting template brought forward a year earlier than planned, supported by 40 workshops aimed at aiding licenses with the transition. 2, development of 2 bespoke data analysis tools, which have reduced data collection, cleaning, analysis, and reporting time from approximately 30 days to just 3 days. This also eliminates the previous requirements for a 30-day cut-off period prior to submission due to the lengthy manual processes. 3, introduction of a machine learning predictive model that focuses licenses throughput volumes, which has been integrated into the new volume reporting framework to assist in determining uncommitted capacity. The model currently achieves a performance score of 63%, which is closer to 100%. And then fourthly, the current utilization level of petroleum storage facilities. Fifthly, this extent of third-party access across storage facilities. And then 6th is the identification of facilities with uncommitted capacity. 7th, licenses providing access to third parties. And lastly, the third-party access request received by the energy regulator. By show of hands, members, if you support the noting as per the recommendation. Thank you, Madam Maseti, Madam Pungose, Mr. Sbanda. I also support from my side. This then concludes item 6, and we then proceed to item 7. You've got your 3 minutes to present.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Madam Gobeni.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members, management, and colleagues. This is the first biannual report for the 2025-26 financial year as required by the annual performance plan. The report seeks to provide updates on the construction projects licensed by NESA and the development since the last report. In terms of the key highlights, there are currently 14 projects that are active. Out of the 14, only 2 have commenced with construction and are on track as per their respective construction timelines set out in the license conditions. These projects are by Vopec in Lesedi and Econ Oil in Nigel. The remaining 12 projects fall under the pre-construction category, with 11 delayed for reasons provided in paragraph 9, which is on page 24 of 42, and 1 recently licensed. With respect to the compliance level on the submission of construction progress reports, we are currently on 100%. At the time of drafting this submission, there were 2 outstanding reports by Avidia. However, following the sign-off of the submission, Avidia submitted its construction progress reports. In terms of the construction timelines, there are 4 licensees that are currently non-compliant with the license conditions. The delays in the timelines are largely caused by matters outside the control of the licensees concerned. However, we continue to enforce compliance through the issuance of non-compliance letters as required by the PPR compliance framework, and also directing licensees to apply for amendments as and when required to remedy the non-compliance. With that said, Chair, we recommend that the PPS notes this report as per paragraph 14.1 of the submission, which is on page 7 of 42. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Gobeni. Maybe just to read the recommendation, which is on 14.1. It is recommended that the PPS notes the first biannual report for the 2025-26 financial year on the monitoring and enforcement of compliance with construction license conditions, attached here to as Annexure 1 on the progress made on the projects licensed by NERSA and the level of compliance by the licensees. Members, any questions, comments, guidance? Madam Aseti, and then followed by Advocate Stolle.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the presenter. Chairperson, I just want to understand the action taken by NERSA with regards to the facilities that are not operational or that are mothballed, as that obviously would have implications. So I would just like to understand what enforcement action have we taken from our side as the regulator for such facilities that are no longer utilized for the purpose they were licensed, and also given the fact that they might also have an implication with regards to the value of the regulatory asset base, if, for instance, all of those have not been identified and removed from the regulatory asset base. I think that's very important that we do that. So I would like to understand what have we done given those implications. And then the second thing, Chairperson, there's some figures that are not making sense for me on paragraph 5.1. We are talking about 120 licenses revoked to date. I'm just not sure whether this affects, I don't know how many licensed entities or companies that are affected. And maybe it would have been useful to then indicate, because 120 is not insignificant. So if these were revoked, it would have been helpful to understand what then happened to those facilities, if there were already facilities that were built, given the fact that licenses were revoked, or they were revoked as after the construction has been completed, such that it does not affect the construction itself, or they were revoked before construction could take place. I'm just not sure, or whether maybe there was no need anymore for the operation of those facilities that were constructed. I think that distinction is quite critical, that we understand exactly what is happening there, instead of just putting that number there without indicating what exactly happened with the 120. The other thing, Chairperson, I think in the report that is coming, again, as this is a annual report, I think it will be important to try and clarify or delve into these figures of the marine loading facilities as well as the petroleum pipelines, to just understand there what is the situation, how many are operational and how many are not operational, because we are not touching on this to indicate exactly whether those are being utilized at the moment, all of them, by the way. So that's what for me will be useful in terms of the report that is coming again as a second report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Aseti. Advocate Stolle.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenter. Chair, mine is just a question of clarity, and also maybe a point that I would like us to consider is the fact that when a construction license has expired, and you find that there are reasons given by the licensee to say that they would like to have their license extended. Is it not possible for us just to consider those licenses if the construction has not taken place within a given period of time, that we let that license lapse and request the licensee to, or rather that entity to reapply again for a new license, because we end up with a list of request for extensions of those construction licenses. So I just thought that would it not be possible for us to do that, or does that require some kind of provision in the Act that would say that if a licensee is issued with a construction license for a given period, and if that doesn't materialize, then we regard that as having lapsed and ask that particular applicant to reapply again. So I just thought that maybe that can be clarified, and it will also minimize the number of extensions that we are getting, and we can speedily respond to the applicant if they haven't met their timelines to say that we consider their license as having lapsed, and therefore then they should reapply. So that's just a point of clarity, and also a suggestion to see if it cannot be considered so that we minimize these number of extensions from construction licenses that we have issues. Thanks.
Thanks, Advocate Chole. May you please respond, Madam Chua?
Thank you, Chair. Maybe if I can start with the last comment from the CEO. I think what she's suggesting is something that we have been trying to motivate the amendment of the legislation to allow such to be implemented, because as is now, the license is valid for 25 years. So then it's then when the construction doesn't start, then it empowers us to amend the construction timelines at the moment. However, the proposals that we currently have a discussion with the policymakers is that maybe we move towards being able to then have licenses expiring and a reapplication when the potential licensee or the applicant is ready for construction. I think Martin will also maybe add on that, but also on the questions that have been highlighted by Ms. Maseti, and also the guidance in terms of the next reports having included the comments that is indicated. We take those notes, but I think I just need to highlight that most of those questions are answered in the operation report, which is the next item. However, Martin will then just just touch on them at this point if the chair allows. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chua. Over to you, Mr. Untit.
Good morning, Chair, members, colleagues, and members of the public. I think maybe start where the first item that Ms. Mtwa indicated, just adding that we actually yesterday again had a session with the policy department from the DMPRE on this very matter of the review and amendment of the Act. Unfortunately, it didn't make it into last year's financial business plan for the DMRE, and we learned yesterday it's been not successful this year either. So we're also looking, unfortunately, until 26, 27. However, the construction license is valid for 25 years, is what we also debated yesterday. However, there is a condition, Section 21T, which says the time when it will be coming operational can be set by NERSA. So that's what we are currently using, is that aspect. But in terms of the law, it's valid for 25 years. And I think the DMPR said that that's more administrative thing in terms of amendment of the Act, and NERSA should do that. And that's what we will be just more strict. But then, as the CEO indicated, on the recent matter that was also publicly streamed that the regulator considered last week, this very question came up on the Cape Ocean terminals matter. And I think the guidance the board gave us there that we should just then be much more stricter that in terms of enforcing the conditions. There is a condition that says if they don't meet the timelines, they must apply for a revocation within a stipulated time. And the enforcement efforts on that is maybe where we should be focusing. Then, Ms. Massetti, maybe I misunderstood, but some of the comments is also, as the EM has indicated, covered in the item 8 report, but we do note that, and maybe not avoiding the question, we will then respond in detail to that on that matter if that is fine. But in general, there is a list of these facilities that they have to notify NERSA in terms of the conditions, and then that is monitored, and that is also dealt with in the operational report. But we take your note, and we will enhance the reports to be more dealing with this matter explicitly to provide the answer and the update to the members.
Thank you. Mary Massetti, are you covered?
Yes, Chairperson, I'll take it in the next submission when they deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Advocate Tole, on your side?
Chairperson, thanks. I've noted the response from the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Then that then takes us to the recommendation, and I think I'd read the recommendation, and with that, members, by show of hands, if you support the recommendation for us to note this biannual report. Thank you, Madam Massetti, Madam Bungose, Advocate Tole, Mrs. Banda. I also support. This then takes us to item 8, which is a biannual report on the monitoring and enforcement of compliance with operation license conditions. Over to you, Mr. Talulan Mapoli.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members and colleagues. The purpose of the report is to request PPS to note the first biannual report for 2025-26 financial year on the level of compliance by licensee with conditions of their operation licenses. The report comprises of 3 sections. Section A, which is Regulation 3 and Regulation 8. Section B, annual reporting in terms of Regulation 6. In terms of Section A, which is average actual storage utilization, in terms of monthly storage facility utilization from the above bulk facilities due to report on their monthly utilization, the average level for the reporting period remain at 99%. For allocation mechanism, 86% of all petroleum storage licensees have lodged their allocation mechanism with the energy regulator. On the HDSA, which is Regulation 8, the level of compliance in terms of reporting on Regulation 8 is 88%. So overall compliance level with license condition on the regulations in this reporting period is above 80% level. On the annual reporting, in terms of Regulation 6, 90% of licensees reported for annual reporting, which is covered on Section B. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mr. Mapoli. Members, any questions, comments, or guidance? I don't see hands currently. Just want to take you then to the recommendation. Oh, Mrs. Banda?
Chair, the question that I had asked earlier, I think Mr. Mapori is probably responding in general at a high level in terms of total compliance, but I would have loved to see whether there's been any correlation between the use of the new template and levels of compliance. I think it would be important to monitor that perhaps going forward so that we know that the changes that we're making are having an impact in the industry. But to also emphasize that I think each report just needs to stand on its own and not to rely on others. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Banda. I don't know if you want to respond, Mr. Mapoli, but I take it that this is an enhancement for the reports going forward. If you may just ensure that you include the aspects as conveyed by Mr. Banda. If in any doubt, you have the record of the meeting to ensure that you do implement. I can see your hand is up, Mr. Untit. I'll just give you a minute to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to that we don't seem to be deflecting questions. In the previous question about the incidents in this report, and I did put it in the chat, but that's where I got it. It is indicated that the number of incidents did significantly decline, and the graph is there. And then, as I've indicated in the chat, the turnaround time to repair this has dramatically improved, and we're sitting at very short periods. So initially, it disrupted supply for a while, but I think that has been addressed with all the measures. And then we do take note that the report should be standing on their own, as well as linkages to other reports if they serve like this. So we will we'll act upon that. And then I did note, I think Ms. Masetti is correct, this report we were not so specific on those mothballed facilities like we've been in the previous report. So also be more consistent and ensure we include that aspect as per a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Untit. This then takes us to the recommendation on page 6 of 35 under paragraph 14.1, which states that it is recommended that the PPS notes the biannual report attached here to as Annexure 1 on the level of compliance of licenses with the condition of their issued operation license, taking due cognizance of the comments made during the meeting. By show of hands, members, if you support the recommendation. Thank you, Madam Masetti. Thank you, Madam Pongose. Thank you, Mrs. Banda. I also support the recommendation. Thank you, Advocate Tole. This concludes item 8, and we go straight to item 9, which is a biannual report on the transitioning of version 8 of the tariff methodology for petroleum pipeline facilities and the implementation of the efficiency adjustment factor and volume rules element of the tariff methodology for petroleum storage and loading facilities, version 5. Over to you, Madam Yogan.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members, management, colleagues, and stakeholders. The submission seeks to request the PPS to note the biannual reports as stated by the Chair, which are attached here to as Annexures A and B. on the transitioning as well as the implementation of the tariff methodologies for petroleum pipelines, storage and loading facilities. I will highlight only two key elements of each report. Starting with the report on the transitioning of the pipelines tariff methodology, which is the third installment of the reports into the transitioning process. The first highlight relates to the note that the revised tariff methodology continues to yield relatively efficient tariffs as envisaged, which is also consistent with the findings of the piloting of the tariff methodology that was initially conducted. The second highlight is that an exercise of measuring the cost efficiency of the pipeline network was conducted in an attempt to address one of the challenges that were presented to the previous PPS meetings that have considered this transitioning process. And it relates to the challenge mainly relates to the determination of an appropriate efficiency measurement component for a monopoly market. The results are outlined in the Appendix 1 of the report. The second element of the submission is on the implementation of version 5 of the tariff methodology for petroleum storage and loading facilities, which was the first to introduce the efficiency adjustment factor and volume rules, which is the main focus of the report. The first highlight there is that out of the 6 licenses that had volume targets set by NERSA, 3 have now met their volume targets, and engagements were conducted with the licenses that were not able to meet their targets, and also the outcomes as well as the further steps that are to be undertaken to assist those licenses are outlined in section 2 of the report. The second highlight here is that all 3 tariff applications that were considered in the first half of this current financial year were all found to be efficient when benchmarked against their peers. And this is a positive sign that the regulatory framework is beginning to show the intended effect of improving the operational efficiency of the storage and loading facilities. And it's also consistent with the anticipation that the results or the intended results of the efficiency adjustment factor would be realized or would materialize in the long run. With that background, Chair, the recommendation is outlined in paragraph 14 of the cover submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Yokwane. Members, any comments, questions, guidance to provide to the team? Madam Massetti, over to you, ma'am.
Chairperson, I struggled with the way that we dealt with the question of efficiencies in the annexure. I think we need to be very careful even for that document to be put out there, even the way that we defined the efficiencies there, number one. Number two, what is critical for regulators, whether it is sector regulators or competition regulators, it is very important that we understand what type of efficiencies are appropriate for purposes of ensuring efficient regulation and also the cost, the reducing cost, and so that consumers can benefit. That is critical for economic regulators such as NERSA, as it is critical for the competition regulators. Now, my worry with the annexure that we are using is the emphasis on allocative efficiencies. That is very bold. I'll be worried if the regulator seems to be taking an approach that seems to adopt allocative efficiencies, because that will also mean that others will be paying more because you value the product irrespective of the cost or the price of it. You value it more, and therefore the supplier, instead of selling it to these consumers that have the demand elasticities that are sensitive, then the supplier will sell rather to the consumers that have demand elasticities that are inelastic. So that becomes a problem, because it means others will be paying a higher price, and that's what would refer to allocative efficiencies. Regulators do not adopt necessarily and consider allocative efficiencies to be the ones that must direct us because of some of the fairness issues and so forth. Now, regulators consider productive efficiencies, what we also call technical efficiencies, because those ones are the ones that where there is a definition there that you use what you call the lowest possible cost in producing, more goods and services. So the lowest possible cost, but you produce more output out of that. So those are your productive efficiencies, or what we call technical efficiencies. And those are the ones that generally regulators will consider, not allocative efficiency. So if you look at that document, that's what it does, and then it then deals with what you call the formulas, and it combines a whole lot of other things such as the X efficiency and stuff like that. It is not very clear. Let's write it in a practical way, how these things work, what the input is going to, what the outcome is likely to be, and what is it that should be appealing to the regulator, and the why. Simple, and so that it is well aligned with even the regulatory framework where we look into efficiencies, not allocative efficiencies. We can't be seen to be adopting allocative efficiencies. So I'm a bit worried if we're going to take it out there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Madam Yohane, if you may just come in.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Maseti. I think first I would like to thank you for pointing out the concern and the potential issues. And I would like to highlight that as we started initially with the development of the efficiency benchmarking, the focus was solely on the output efficiencies in terms of whether the volumes are aligned with the capacity utilization. And we ran into the challenge of benchmarking for the pipelines. And as a first step, because we kept saying there should be a discovery of the other measures, so we thought it should be a development process where we start with exploring the concept of cost efficiencies in addition to the output efficiencies that were initially considered. As a result, in the Appendix 1, we considered all the types of efficiencies that fall under the three methodologies that were used. Perhaps we fell short in terms of mentioning that the objective is to provide a comparative analysis to see whether we can select one. And also the report for now is for internal use only. And we will continue working on it. We did even highlight some of the results on the technical efficiencies, the scale efficiencies, and allocative efficiencies under the development envelope analysis. And also on the SFA method, we also dealt with the multiplicative as well as the additive efficiencies. However, we'll continue and reframe the report and add the more practical aspect of technical efficiency as it relates to the productive efficiency, and also noting that the focus on the cost minimization is solely to check whether there is a possibility where the licensee can also improve their costs while also employing their strategies to improve volumes in line with their capacities. But we will highlight it and make sure that we also consult during the second leg of the testing process. I hope that covers it all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Yukwane. And I think it's going to be important for you to revisit the recordings when we're still looking at the development of the methodology, because this question came up and there were responses there too, and even on your documents, if you can just bring it back so that you clarify this matter of the type of efficiencies that are being looked at right up front as part. You can include 1 or 2 paragraphs in the next report to make sure that you are categorical regarding same. Okay, Madam Aseti, are you covered?
Yes, Chairperson, I'm covered, and maybe it can also be, if they can organize maybe even an internal workshop so that also others can benefit out of this, and that there's a lot of also jurisprudence, even in other jurisdictions, even at the Competition Commission here in South Africa, what type of efficiencies are considered and why, and how they are rejected when economic evidence gets presented before the courts. And what will be considered to be something that is of benefit. I also wrote a document some years at the Commission with regards to types of efficiencies and the tribunals that consider those type of things, and in other jurisdictions as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. And it's also good that Madam Yukwane is also a former Competition Commission employee, and you will have to present it under the auspices of our capacity building workshop. Unfortunately, I'm also chair of that, so please get yourself ready to do that kind of presentation, because it stands to benefit the whole of the organization. With that, members, I don't want to hold you hostage anymore, but would like to proceed to the recommendation as presented on page 15 of 41, reading thus: it is recommended that the PPS notes the biannual reports of the current financial year on the transitioning of version 8 of the tariff methodology for petroleum pipelines facilities attached here to as Annexure A, and 2, the implementation of the efficiency adjustment factor and volume rules elements of the tariff methodology for petroleum storage and loading facilities version 5 attached here to as Annexure B. Members, by show of hands, if you support the recommendation, noting all the comments that have been put forth during this meeting. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Advocate Chole. Thank you, Mr. Sbanda. Thank you, Madam Pumose. I also support the recommendation. Members, management and staff of NERSA, as well as the members of the public that are following us through the various live streaming platforms. This brings us to the end of this meeting, the open part of the meeting. I would like to thank all of you, especially the members of the public whose interest helps in terms of keeping us on our toes and ensuring that we get better each day, despite whatever challenges we might be facing. So thank you very much.